Yo, what's up, y'all? It's MMA Analyst. I'm here to do my my predictions for UFC 97. It's in Montreal. I'm going to be there. I'm going to see what I can do, see if I can come back with maybe an interview or two. Who knows? You know, it's tough to get interviews when, like, everybody's got interviews with, you know, the big dogs, you know what I mean? And you're just the MMA analyst trying to get in. But anyways, it's a really good card from top to bottom. A lot of up-and-coming fighters, a lot of fighters who have been around, a lot of names. Just a pretty good card all around. So yeah, let's get at this from the top to bottom. Starting off with Anderson Silva versus Leites. Basically, this is a fight between Anderson Silva going for his 9th win in a row, his 5th title defense in a row. 9 wins will make it a record. 5 title defenses will tie a record. He's been crushing dudes for a long time. In the UFC especially, his last win was one he was not happy with over Patrick Cote. He's got a win like in a minute over James Irving. He beat Dan Henderson, the guy who everybody thought would give him the most difficulty in the UFC, myself included. He broke Rich Franklin's nose twice. He TKO'd Nate Marquardt. He submitted Travis Lutter. He destroyed Chris Lieben. He did an up elbow to Tony Fricklin. That was before the UFC. But anyways, he's got wins over Jorge Rivera, Curtis Stout, Lee Murray, one of the biggest, craziest dudes ever. If y'all don't know about Lee Murray, y'all don't know. There needs to be a movie made about that guy. Anyways, y'all, Hayata Sakurai, Juan Carnero, he's got a lot of wins, but his UFC streak, his UFC run has been basically one of the best of all time in the UFC, and he's only looking to further that mission. I think what he wants to do is probably just keep winning and retire the champ and then roll out. You know what I mean? And maybe box 1 or 2 times and that's it. Anyways, Anderson Silva, definitely, pound for pound number 2 in my eyes. Pound for pound number 1 in other people's eyes. But he definitely is 1 or 2. That's it. There's nobody in between. Fedor will be number 1. He's number 2. Anyways, he will be facing Leites. Now, Leites is a very, very tough Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter. We really saw his toughness against Nate Marquardt when, most guys would have either been knocked out or unable to continue, and Leites was able to go through the knee to the downed opponent right to his face. He was able to overcome the pile driver at the end of the fight. There's some punches to the back of the head, but anyways, he did lose the fight if it came down to reality. But also reality is that he was hit illegally more than once, definitely twice, and it doesn't matter what 2 were counted. Like, the final pile driver wasn't deducted, so maybe use the pile driver as a deduction of points rather than the hit to the back of the head. But he was at an unfair disadvantage throughout that whole fight against Nate Marquardt, which was one of the best in the division, and he still managed to make it through. And if you break the rules, you get punished. Nate Marquardt was deducted 2 points, and he lost the fight. He went in and submitted Drew McFedries with ease. He submitted Ryan Jensen. He had a unanimous decision over Pete Sell. His only loss is to Martin Kampmann. Like I said, he's very tough. He's 3 days older, 3 days younger than me. What the F have I been doing? He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. The problem with this fight is, he's fighting a beast. And I do not see him getting past Anderson Silva's long reach, whether it be his elbows, fists, knees, kicks, whatever. I don't see him making out of the first round. If he does make it out of the first round, I don't see him making it out of the second round. I mean, if Thales Leites can get the fight to the ground, then that would be a different story. Like, he could have a chance. Stand-up wise, though, every fight starts on the feet, and home dude is just going to be in some serious trouble, especially with Anderson Silva coming off that vicious knee break or whatever happened to Patrick Cote. He was not happy with that. He is ready to come back. He's ready to start finishing people again. I mean, I think he was just dancing around, doing his Muhammad Ali, doing his Bruce Lee, doing his Floyd Mayweather Jr. type stuff, and it backfired because, he wasn't able to really continue with the plan. But a lot of people say that he had a bad showing. I think he had a good showing. It's just that he wasn't able to actually, finish the movie. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you watching a drama. Like, normally Anderson Silva's fights are like an action movie. And he goes out there and he just shoots people and breaks people's arms and blows up helicopters and all types of stuff. So then finally they were like, "Yo, Anderson, we need you to do like a drama / suspense." You know what I mean? So he went out there and he was doing all the acting, and he was reading his lines and building up to the ending, which is supposed to be a dope ending. But what ended up happening was, they lost the budget to the film, had to cut the film short, and then they ended up releasing only the first half of the movie, which is what people consider the boring stuff. It's kind of like if you watch The Usual Suspects and you don't get to that last scene, it might not be the movie is definitely not what it is. You know what I mean? If you don't know who Kaiser Soze is, then you just think it's your average crime movie. And then you watch that and you're like, oh snap, I saw the ending. Like, if we could have only saw the ending, this could have been, instead of Anderson Silva's, what his worst showing in the UFC, it could have been one of his best showings of all time. Anyways, Anderson Silva, first round knockout. And it's hard to knock that dude out too. He's tough. Alright, next fight. Chuck Liddell versus Mauricio Shogun Hua. Hoo-wee. Y'all, your brother's hurting right here, man. Dude is hurting. I'm hurt. Let's get right into this. Chuck the Iceman Liddell, everybody knows what he's about. 21 wins, 14 by knockout, 6 losses. He knocks you out moving backwards. He knocks you out moving forward. He's got a crazy right. The dude's been handling his business since 1998. He was actually in UFC 17 back in 1998. That was his first fight. Came back in UFC 19 and lost to Jeremy Horn. Beat up Jeff Monson after that at UFC 29. Kevin Randleman at UFC 31. This is before he was the dude. Guy Mezger, he went over to Pride, beat him up. Murillo Bustamante beat him up at UFC 33. This guy's been in the UFC since the beginning. Vitor Belfort, decision back in UFC 37. Went over to Pride. Look, do I have to go through this dude's whole career? If you don't know who Chuck Liddell is or what he's done, then take a look. He's not my favorite fighter, but you gotta respect what he's been able to do over the years. Now, more recently, his biggest win was over Wanderlei Silva, which is a fight that was probably 3 years too late. He has a loss to Keith Jardine by decision, a loss to Quentin Rampage Jackson, its second loss actually, and then his worst loss of all time to Rashad Evans, who knocked him the hell out. But he's coming back. And think about this, y'all. After all the talk and all the whatever between UFC and Pride from back in the day, and Wanderlei Silva and Shogun and Chuck Liddell, if Chuck Liddell comes out and beats Mauricio Shogun, damn y'all, this homeboy is tired. If he comes out and beats Mauricio Shogun Hua, he will have beat Wanderlei and Mauricio Like, he would have, like, taken out the top dudes from over in Pride. I know it's a little late, and I know Shogun ain't the same Shogun as it used to be. At least he hasn't been since his injuries. But that would be impressive. Another impressive thing to put on Chuck Liddell's mantle. Only thing he needs to do is figure out how to beat Rampage Jackson and maybe get that title back. But anyways, he's serious. Chuck Liddell, the most popular fighter in MMA, I would say. He's definitely the most successful when it comes to funds. He's getting the cash for whooping that ass. And I mean, he's in for a fight here. He wants the title shot back. He wants the title. He says he's not quitting. He says he's going out there and he's gonna fight his ass off. He actually switched up his camp a little bit. Got some other dudes, some boxing trainers, help him protect his head so he can stop throwing punches with his hands by his waist. He's doing everything he needs to do to come out here and beat Shogun and try and get a title shot at some point in the near future. Mauricio Shogun Hua, on the other hand, was 21 years old when he won the Grand Prix at Pride. During that Grand Prix, he smashed through everybody, like in extreme fashion. He had the win over Ricardo Arona, Alistair Overeem, Antonio Rogero Nogueira, Quentin Rampage Jackson, broke his ribs, kicked him all up in his face. Alistair Overeem, TKO punches. Rodrigo Nogueira, one of the most crazy fights ever. Ricardo Arona slid through with that stomp and then just monstered the side of his face. The 2005 middleweight Grand Prix. That is why Mauricio Shogun Hua is Mauricio Shogun Hua. That is what everybody knows him for. He was 21 at the time. He also beat Evangelista Santos, which is Cyborg Santos. Well, that's his nickname too. Christina Cyborg Santos' crazy-looking husband from Shootbox. He lost to Renato Babalu Sobral back in 2003. I mean, the dude came out of nowhere, really, and just smashed people. Since then, he beat Randleman by knee bar, Nakamura, Alistair Overeem again, and then he came to the UFC, and all that was out the window, it looked like. Forrest Griffin, Shogun got tired in like round, the first minute of the first round. He was coming off a whole bunch of injuries and stuff, hadn't got his surgeries yet. No excuses, but the dude got jacked up real quick, and he got submitted with seconds left in the third round. Forrest ended up getting a title shot, and ended up winning the title from that. Then he came back and fought, I think Mark Coleman at the time was 68 years old, Mark Coleman. Mark Coleman was so tired, and Shogun was just as tired and just barely finished Mark Coleman with seconds left in that round. He's had a lot of issues. He's had the 2 surgeries. He's had a year and a half away from fighting. There was some stuff going on that I really can't get into, but I can say that there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, supposedly Mauricio Shogun Hua is handling his business. Supposedly he's training hard. He's switched up his camp. He's gone through a lot of stuff to like guarantee that he goes out there and fights the way he can fight. Now, if you take a look at the situation on paper, you've got Chuck Liddell, who's basically almost an old man. He's still a tough-ass old man, but he's almost an old man. And he, up to now, has been all about 1 or 2 tricks. 1, 2. And that's it. And they're down here. You know what I mean? Like below the screen, you can't even really see what's happening. But you know how he holds that hand, and then he walks backwards and just goes bop and knocks people out. That's what he's been doing his whole career. Supposedly, Chuck is changing that a little bit. He's gonna hold him up a bit, whatever, whatnot. But regardless of any of those changes, Shogun's game, like healthy Shogun with his full, all well-rounded game, is definitely the more well-rounded fighter of the two. He's younger by like 13 years, maybe more, but he's got those 2 injuries. Lots of questions here. Whoever wins this fight is going to get a like a #1 contender type thing after this fight. Whoever loses this fight is going to be kicked out of the UFC if your name isn't Chuck Liddell. Obviously, Chuck Liddell will never be kicked out of the UFC for 2 reasons. A, because he's Chuck Liddell. B, because he's Chuck Liddell. The A part of that is because, you know, he's absolutely best friends with Dana White. He's the most popular dude in UFC history. He can really do no wrong. The B side of it is nobody from the UFC wants Chuck Liddell headlining a Strikeforce card or an Affliction card. That's never going to happen. They won't, you know what I mean? They do not want that. So if they kicked him out, like, oh, you lost, then he just get paid big bucks and maybe headline a broadcast network card on a Saturday night for Strikeforce, which would be deadly. You know, Chuck Liddell's fighting on free TV? On free TV? Oh, wow. That would bring in the numbers. He's still the most popular fighter in MMA. Anyways, what's going to happen here? Wow. Look, I'm going to put it like this. There's 2 things you don't do when you're picking fights or betting on fights. 1, fall for the hype. 2, bet on your favorite guy just because he's your favorite guy. I'm going to do both of those. First things first, I'm not going to root against thing. I can't pick Chuck and then kind of have that little bit of whatever, you know, rooting for Chuck. I can't do that. I don't want Shogun to lose his fight. I want him to win the fight. So I gotta pick him for that reason. 2, what makes that a little bit easier to do was that UFC 97 thing that they did on Spike TV, where like they showed all the craziness. I'm talking about the hype side. Shogun's talking a lot of hype. I changed up my camp. I'm training like I never trained before. My knees 100%. Beating Chuck Liddell will be a huge thing in my career. You know, number 5. If I lose this, I understand the repercussions. 6. If I win this, I understand the repercussions. Like, he's talking all this stuff. And according to the show, according to the hype, he's doing all the right things. And if Shogun comes out doing all the right things, training properly, and looking something like he did back in 2005, I think it was, well then yeah, he'll win that fight. So, you know what? Even though in my brain it's telling me Chuck Liddell 3rd round knockout, F all that. I'm going Shogun Rua 2nd round knockout. Alright? Sometimes you gotta go with your heart. Sometimes. This is that time. Gotta do it. Alright. Now. Next up. Krzysztof Soszynski versus Brian Stann. We're trying to shorten these ones up a little bit. Krzysztof Soszynski, you can see him in the background all the time with Team Quest. Is that what that is? Always sitting with Dan. Like, he's like in Dan Henderson's corner and Sokoju's corner and all types of crazy stuff. Anyways, 16 wins, 8 losses. He's been in it for a while. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. He came from the TV show, at least it looks like that, but prior to that he had like 20-something fights. All of his losses have been to real big guys. Ben Rothwell, Reese Andy, back in heavyweight days, Mike Whitehead, Ben Rothwell again, These are big guys. You know, he's got 8 wins by submission. He's a pretty well-rounded guy. I mean, he's pretty well-rounded, not he's pretty and well-rounded. All right, and he's definitely coming to this fight with. I'm pretty sure he's coming to this fight with the tools that it would take to take out Brian Stann. Brian Stann's coming to the fight 6 wins, 1 loss. His loss is to Steve Cantwell. It was a loss that he actually it was an avenged fight. Like, he had already beat Steve Cantwell back in 2007. Other than that, he doesn't really have any significant wins. He did beat Doug Marshall back in WEC 33. I'm gonna go with Krzysztof Sosinski by TKO in round 2. Next, we got Chet Congo versus Anthony Hardunk Star. Chet Congo, guy's starting to get on my good side. I know he doesn't need to be on my good side. Like, who am I? But I'm just saying, for a long time I didn't like the dude. I thought he was very arrogant, very cocky, and didn't have all the skills to back up all of his arrogance and cockiness. But recently he's been saying the right things, doing the right things. Against Mustafa Al-Turk, a pretty good takedown, pretty good wrestler, pretty good jiu-jitsu dude. He stuffed those takedowns like it was easy style. He said the right things after the fight. He wasn't just doing his regular, I want my belt, give me my... He wasn't doing all that retarded stuff. He's training with a good camp with, Wolf's Lair and with Rampage or whatnot. He does have some pretty impressive looking wins in the UFC, although who he was beating wasn't too impressive. He beat Mustafa Al-Turk by facial mutilation. He beat Dan Evanson by some nice TKO strikes. He had a win over Mirko Cro Cop, which was pretty much the last straw for Mirko Cro Cop. Win over Oswaldo Silva, but the problems with him, the reason why Chet Congo hasn't had a title shot yet, is because of the losses to Carmelo Marrero and to Heath Herring. Those were 2 big losses. If you take out any one of those losses, then he probably would have had a title shot by now. Against Heath Herring, it was one of the most disgusting looking fights of all time. They're both on the ground in a competition of who could show how bad they were on the mat, who sucked the most in jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And Heath Herring won the who sucks the most competition, and that gave Chet Congo a very close split decision over Heath Herring. If he wants a title shot, he's gonna have to beat some people. It's not, those people don't include Dan Evanson, Mustafa Al-Turk, or Anthony Hardunk, but at least getting back on the winning track against some good guys, or at least against some UFC guys, will be something positive rather than something negative. Anthony Hardunk will be his toughest challenge since Heath Herring, and I think that fight will go alright. Let's get into Anthony Hardunk. Anthony Hardunk, 8 wins, 4 losses. Basically, Anthony Hardunk hasn't really fought anybody tough since Frank Mir, in which he lost that fight in the first round, 1 minute and 17 seconds into it. Since then, he beat up Colin Robinson. It was a nice win. He basically made him quit because of leg kicks. He beat Eddie Sanchez, who is now not with us anymore in the Zuffa land. And he beat Mike Wessel. But as you can see, he hasn't beat anybody with the skill set or name of Chet Congo. This fight is basically like this. Both these guys are like on each side. They're kind of like Cain Velasquez and Shane Carwin. They're kind of both doing similar things on different paths, and sooner or later they have to collide to see who's the dude that's going to move forward and who's the guy that's going to have to take the back seat. So right now, this is like the big bang here, and we'll see what happens after this. I I think if the fight goes to the ground, Anthony Hardong's better on the ground than Chet Congo. Oprah is better on the ground than Chet Congo. So, that doesn't say much. But getting it to the ground is a problem, as Chet Congo's takedown defense does look a lot better. I was impressed with his takedown defense against Mustafa Al-Turk. I think Chet Congo will win this fight. I think it will be either a third round knockout or a decision, unanimous decision for Chet Congo. But I do see Chet Congo win that fight. And then last fight on the main card, Steve Cantwell versus Louis Arthur Kane. Steve Cantwell, this is a 205 fight, and it's real weird because I remember him against Razak Al Hassan, and it just didn't seem like Razak Al Hassan was 205. It just seemed like he was like a Dean Thomas size type dude. Anyways, we remember him breaking his arm. Razak Al Hassan was just sitting there, like, break my arm, kind of like in Talladega Nights, where he was like, you're gonna have to break it, buddy, because I ain't, whatever, and he just breaks the arm. That was nasty. That was like the most violent night of UFC history. UFC fight for the troops. We had Corey Hill's leg get snapped in two. We had Razak Al Hassan arm get pushed the wrong way. I think that was the same card where Mike Swick blasted somebody's face all up, like, with heavy nastiness. Let me take a look at that real quick. And then we also had Homeboy beat what's his name? Josh Koscheck by vicious knockout. It was just a crazy fight all around, just violent. It was supposed to be raising money for the troops, ended up raising money for them damn selves because they were all injured at the end of that damn card. Anyways, Steve Cantwell, like, he only has one loss. It's to Brian Stan. He avenged that loss in WC 35. He also has a win over Tim McKenzie. He has a win over Richie Hightower. And this is a fight here where, he's going to want to come out here and get a good win, move up in the rankings. Not like ranked, but just move up in the rankings. Still got a long way to go. The 205 division is a serious one. And he's going to have to win 3-4 more fights before he even can consider any kind of title shot. But beating Louis Arthur Kane will be something, that will be, that'll be a big step for him, if he can do it. Louis Arthur Kane came out, knocked out Sokoju before that, beat Jason Lambert. His only loss is a disqualification when he kneed James Irvin in the face. And, so he's a tough-ass dude. He fights Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai. He's 27, fights out of Brazil. I'm gonna go with Louis Arthur Kane here. I think this fight will obviously be a stand-up fight, and I think that Kane will be able to catch him with a knockout, probably in the first round. I think this is gonna look more like a brawl than anything, and I think at the end of the day, Louis Arthur Kane lands that knockout shot. All right, now the preliminary card. Elliot Marshall versus Vinny Magalhaes. Vinny, probably the only dude in the UFC that has a losing record right now. He's 2-3. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, very, very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He'll be facing Elliot Marshall, who is also a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. If this was a Jiu-Jitsu match, if this was like the Mundials or something like that, well, then I would pick Vinny for the win. But it's not. It is a fight. It is an MMA fight. Elliot Marshall, I'm not saying that he's a crazy kickboxer or anything like that, but I know on his feet, I believe that his stand-up is better than Vinny's. I think he can maybe get to the top. Maybe I don't see anybody getting a decision here, submission here. I don't see anybody getting a knockout here, but I see Elliot being able to take this by decision. Dennis Kang versus Xavier Fupa Polcom. This is one of the best fights. I think this might be fight of the night, to be completely honest. Professor X, 20 wins, 8 losses. He hasn't lost since 2007, which when he lost to Murillo Hua. He also lost to Paul Daly and Martin Kampman. The Martin Kampman loss was a disqualification, but basically, you know, he's a kickboxer from France, and he's a very exciting fighter. And they'll be taking on Dennis Kang, who's, you know, also a very exciting fighter, but has had some issues as of late. He lost to Alan Belcher in a fight where he was dominating, and it looked like Alan Belcher had no hope. He lost to Gegard Mousasi, which, looking back at it, you know, there's no shame in that. He lost to Akiyama, who's making his UFC debut coming up, and he's also a great fighter. And he lost to Kazuo Masaki. Those were like what he's done recently. He did beat Murillo Ninja Hua back in Pride 11. Bushido 11. It's going to be a good fight. This will be one of the, like I said, I think it'll be one of the best fights of the card. I think in the end, Dennis Kang takes this fight. He takes the fight on experience, even though these guys are both very experienced. I think he takes the fight A, on experience, B, on having faced more difficult competition over the years, having beat, you know, some of the guys that Xavier has lost to. Xavier, really, when it comes down to it, he has beat a lot of guys, but he hasn't beat a lot of name guys, a lot of guys that, you know, people know who they are, a lot of respected guys in the game. Dennis Kang has been facing top competition for like the last 5-6 years. He's been in the game for a long time. I'm going to pick Dennis Kang. If Dennis Kang doesn't win this fight, then it's over. Straight up. That's it. This is kind of like this is the last straw. He has to. This is a tough straw, but it's the last one, and he has to win this fight. If he doesn't win this fight, then there's no hope. Nate Quarry versus Jason McDonald. I got Nate Quarry winning this one by decision. Jason McDonald needs to get this fight to the ground to win. I think Nate Quarry's wrestling will be good enough to at least not get submitted for 3 rounds. I got Nate Quarry winning that one. David Loiseau versus Ed Herman. David Loiseau's back in the UFC after a few wins outside of the UFC. Ed Herman, I think he's on a 2-fight losing streak. He needs to win this fight or he will get the boot. His only losses recently have been to Alan Belcher by split decision and to Damian Maia, which everybody loses to Damian Maia. He also lost to Jason McDonald in the past and to Kendall Grove. David Loiseau, he knocks people out. He has one of the most exciting spinning back kick wins from back in the day in the UFC. He did lose to Rich Franklin. He lost to Mike Swick, all by decision. He lost to Joey Villasenor and Elite XC, again by decision. He lost to Jason Day. That's his last loss, February 1st, 2008, also by decision. I do believe this fight will go to the decision, and I think it'll be who has the better gas tank. Damn, this is a tough one to pick. But I'm gonna go with Ed Herman by decision. Mark Bocek versus David Bielkadin. I'm going to go Mark Bocek by decision. That'll be a pretty half decent jiu-jitsu match. But I do think Bocek's jiu-jitsu will be better. Ryo Chonin versus TJ Grant. Going Ryo Chonin also by decision. And Sam Stout versus Matt Wyman. Matt Wyman was looking real good in his recent bouts, all the way up until this Jim Miller loss where he looked horrible. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what happened. Jim Miller, I think it was, took the fight on late notice, and he looked horrible. Prior to that, he had lost to Spencer Fisher in UFC 60. He lost to Roger Huerta outside of the UFC. He lost to Nick Aguilar at MFC, but he was looking like a beast. He ran through Omagawa. He beat Justin Buchholz. And then Thiago Tavares, he beat him with KO punch. And then I thought he'd be able to take out Miller, and he just got owned. However, he's facing Sam Stout. I don't think Sam Stout has what it takes to beat Matt Wiman. I think he'll be taken down, put on his back a bunch of times, tired out, and I got Matt Wiman winning this fight by unanimous decision, and probably in a boring manner. But he'll get the win, which is all that matters. So yeah, that's UFC 97. It's a pretty damn good card from top to bottom. A lot of Canadians, but like there's some good Canadians on this. We got, David Loiseau making his UFC return, Dennis Kang, Jason McDonald, Mark Bocek. Main cards filled with names: Chuck Liddell, Shogun, Congo, Anderson Silva, Talis Leites. It's a good card. It's a good card. I'm glad to be there, or at least I will be glad to be there, you know what I mean? And see what I can do, see if I can get backstage. I ain't going to be able to get backstage. See if I can get close to the cage and maybe get some MMA, its importance from some people. We shall see. We'll see. Last time I said that, I did real good. This time, if I get anywhere near what I did at the Affliction, I will be surprising my damn self. MMA, y'all, it's important. Peace.